So I'd like to pre-emphasize this before starting on my takes. There's nothing wrong with the Nintendo Switch 2 version of Cyberpunk 2077. The game runs just as well as it does on other versions of the game. It's actually better, than what the PS4 and the Xbox One versions were at release, and continues to be just as good as like the PC version. Cyberpunk was it's a really interesting game because a lot of people like came into this expecting this to not run well on Switch 2, that it would be proof that like the Switch 2 like couldn't run anything, that it wasn't very powerful, and yet there's everything wrong with Cyberpunk is wrong with the game itself. The game runs fine, it's just the game itself is fundamentally broken. So you see like all these weird visual glitches and all these terrible gameplay aspects. Like there was this time where I tried sneaking up on a guy and I should have been able to grab him, but for some reason it wouldn't let me do it. So like you have situations like that. You have all these weird glitches, all these weird like programming errors, and it's clearly a fault of like CD Projekt Red being incompetent. But a lot of people tried to make this out to be Nintendo's fault, ignoring the fact that like they don't make the game. So it was kind of amusing to kind of see the initial like narrative fall apart. This idea that like Nintendo couldn't handle Cyberpunk or that they would censor it or something didn't happen. And weirdly enough, like this seems to be the trend when it comes to like gaming YouTubers. Like the gaming YouTuber community really is seriously trying to pretend as if like Cyberpunk 2077 is one of the best games on day one. And that's like obviously not true, because like this obviously isn't going to compete with Mario Kart, and I would argue it like isn't even really competing with like Street Fighter or like a lot of the other like download only games. Like Cyberpunk 2077 is a complete nothing burger that nobody cares about, nobody wants to play, nobody wants to hear about, but gaming YouTubers like are really adamant that this is like some secret like hidden gem on Nintendo Switch, that like this is some like spectacular thing. And keep in mind, I played this on Nintendo Switch too. I'm being completely serious here. Cyberpunk 2077 is slop. It's really, really, really bad, with like a very terrible like plot progression with just endless cutscenes and dialogues. Very limited gameplay. Cyberpunk is just a complete disaster right from the get-go that seems to like hyperfixate on like visual design and like spectacle. Cyberpunk 2077 is not a video game. It just isn't. All you're doing is walking from place to place and having some guy give you some like exposition about what you're going to do next, but like, oh no, another cutscene, and since some other guy comes in and like gives you more exposition, and like none of it is interesting, fresh, or exciting. I found myself thinking that like it was basically like a knockoff Deus Ex. In that regard, it's like it has a more limited like dialogue system. Like it doesn't really sell you on the setting. And for a game called Cyberpunk 2077, something that purported itself to be like the defining example of like the genre in the video game format, like the fact that it like fell flat compared to Deus Ex Human Revolution, a game that's over like 15 years old at this point, a game that I thought was like very derivative and slop when I played it on the Wii U. The fact that it's like it falls short compared to that really demonstrates, I think, like just how big of frauds CD Projekt Red actually are. Like it should have been like more evident, when this game came out, that the problems with this release extend far beyond the visual glitches and the bugs, which still persist to this day, by the way. The game just fundamentally isn't very fun to play. It's basic, it's uninspired, it's a generic shooter with RPG elements. It's CD Projekt Red. Okay, they're not good developers. They're not good storytellers. They're not good writers. CD Projekt Red like completely dropped the ball with this. But there is this very stubborn refusal among the online gaming community to admit this, and games like No Man's Sky were bad. Like people have this like tendency to act as if like the games were fixed with bugs, were fixed with patches, but the reality is like the core game is just unfixable. Like right from the onset, like they didn't make the characters interesting. They didn't make the game fun to play, and it just comes off as cringe. I was kind of surprised, the sheer amount of time I cringed when I was playing through this game, and like hearing the characters talk, and like seeing them like try and get you invested. It's just like, why should I care? That's kind of my mindset, like playing Cyberpunk and like going through the first like couple of hours or so. Like, why should I care about what's going on? And I don't, like nothing the game has done has worked on me. I played the game, I gave it a fair shot, I streamed it, and it's just generic, uninspired slop. And with that being said, the most significant thing about this, I think, is the fact that it's on Nintendo Switch now. Real gamers are gonna play this for the first time ever, and like they're gonna come away thinking that like this is some uninspired like disaster of a release. Like this really is something that I think like a lot of people are gonna play and just kind of come away with this feeling of just like how low the bar is for AAA games. And that is kind of like my mindset on this, is that like, it's still better, I think, than like the average PlayStation exclusive. But like at the same time, like that's really not saying a whole lot, Like it's better than Witcher 3. That's not saying a whole lot, Like it's like, okay, so it's better than like all this other slop. But at the same time, like, I have so many like other games that are good that I would rather play instead. That's kind of my mindset on this, is that like, maybe I would like in a vacuum I would play this game and like make fun of it, but like right now, in the early days of the Switch 2 life cycle, I'm bogged down with games I would rather play instead. I've been playing Mario Kart. I've been playing Fantasy Life 2. I'm about to start Hitman tonight. Like there are so many other games to play that like I really don't think that anybody is ever going to bother wasting their time with such derivative, uninspired slop as Cyberpunk 2077.